Hey, what's going on, y'all? Eric Moultrie here with Code Red Conversations. Today's video, I'm going to be jumping right into the content and jumping right into the discussion. It's a pretty heavy one. Unfortunately, or I should say, which is typical of our show, we deal with some pretty sensitive and heavy topics because I feel like that the best thing to do isn't to shy away from conversations like this. We need to dive deep and look at some of these tragic incidents, some of these tragic situations to see what you can gain from it, you as a viewer, what we all can learn, so that if we ever find ourselves in a similar setting, a similar situation, we will have some tools and maybe a few things that we can use to better be able to defend ourselves. So we're going to jump right into the content. We're going to, just as I said, right from the get-go, we're going to jump right into the video. And I will not show the actual shooting, just as a heads up. I'll stop the video right just prior to the shooting. Then I'll read a little bit of the details, talk a little bit about the suspect, and then I'll present to you some takeaways, some things that I learned and I gleaned as I watched this. Maybe a handful of things that you can use and put in your tool belt, put in your pocket to help you down the road. Lord forbid you ever find yourself in a situation like this, but in this crazy world with an ever increasing crime rate, you never know what you might be facing. You never know what you may come in contact with. Hello, Cindy. But in the meantime, let's jump right in. So here we have the store clerk. Some of the details that I heard prior to this incident was that, again, people taking advantage of the whole wearing a mask, the post-COVID world that we're living in. He came in the store looking around as if he was going to buy something with bad intentions from the get-go.
Now, what money with the bag? In the bag is a blue bag. What register? Huh? What register? Register on this one. Register because it was taken yesterday.
So Parmvir, the store clerk, just gave him the bag. I guess that you're going to use to cash in at the end of the day. He gave him the bag with a good amount of the money, if I'm not mistaken, or with some of the money. And he seems to be going along with this individual.
No, you better. I'm going to look myself. Oh, no problem.
He asks him to get on the ground. He complies. He gets on the ground.
On the floor. Okay. Oh, you get on your stomach. Yeah, man. You take it all, no problem. Wrong stomach. Oh. You take this one. No, you bet.
So he has some more money. And right there, I'm going to stop the video right there, y'all. I don't want to show the actual execution on screen. It's bad, primarily because I know YouTube will give me a whole lot of crap and they'll probably put all kinds of blocks on my video to keep me from showing it and to keep other people from seeing it. My goal is that I want people to actually learn from it. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the video forward just a little bit and get to the point too. You'll still see some of the remnants of what went down, and there'll be some commentary. I'll turn the audio down here, but you'll see what the suspect does afterwards. Now, after he's already shot Parmvir, he's looking for the surveillance footage. He's looking for the surveillance footage so that he can hopefully try to cover his evil tracks. Pretty horrendous, y'all. Thankfully, as time went on, they ultimately caught him. and he's locked up right now where he can't hurt anybody for the moment. Now, I'm going to take you to an additional article just from the Daily Wire that discusses a little bit about him, if I'm not mistaken. This article talks about his background. So give me 1 second here. All right. This is tragic on so many levels, y'all. So many levels that this whole situation is tragic. You nailed it, Cindy, 100%. It's so heartbreaking, and it was so unnecessary. But it's a reminder as to what we're dealing with in our world today. A very cold, stark reminder. And there's some people out there, not to make this too deeply political, but I think you can't really go and address this situation without touching on this to some degree. Because if I'm not mistaken, if my information is correct, Chris Copeland, the killer, was actually had a warrant out for his arrest for other previous felonies. I'm not sure if if he was released on I'm not sure what Mississippi's laws are when it comes down to bail. I don't know if they have any of that radical bail reform. If there's anyone watching who's familiar, if you could let me know, that would be cool. Let me know in the comments. I'll definitely share it. But let's read some of this article here so we can get a few more of the details. Horrifying security camera footage shows robber executed a very gracious store clerk, police. And that's another aspect of it that I will be getting into as we progress along in this video. A horrifying video shows a murder that unfolded in Tupelo, Mississippi at a convenience store on Sunday. It was on 9/11 when this took place, as a matter of fact, where a very, quote unquote, very gracious man working at the store, it says allegedly executed, but it's pretty clear, by the suspect, police said. The Daily Journal reported that police charged 26-year-old Chris Copeland with capital murder for allegedly shooting 33-year-old Parmvir Singh in the back of the head after ordering him to get on the floor of the Chevron Food Mart. Tupelo Police Detective Wes Clerk said that security camera footage from inside the store shows the suspect walking into the store, as we saw, pulling a gun out of his waistband and pointing it at Singh. The report said that the suspect was wearing an olive hoodie, yellow t-shirt, colorful pajama bottoms, which matches up exactly with the video on social media of the incident. The video also matched up with Clerk's description of the incident. Twitter censored one account that posted the video. The clerk is very gracious and even gave him a stack of money he didn't ask for. Clerk testified. He opened the safe for him and gave him a bank bag. The video shows Singh get on the floor and the suspect jumped over the counter. The suspect then walked up behind Singh and at point blank range executed him. Shot him right in the back of the head. The video footage is available on Instagram and various other social media sources. It's available on YouTube. It's pretty horrific to watch, and if you're sensitive or squeamish to that kind of stuff, I understand if you don't want to see it. But if you want to see it, it's definitely out there. The report said that the detective testified that Copeland walked over and retrieved a spent shell casing and then ripped out what he thought was a DVD recorder box and fled the store. Copeland had previously been convicted of felonies related to robberies and burglaries, which means that he was banned from possessing a firearm. Which is let me bring this back, y'all. Let me bring this up a bit. Which also points to the reality when we talk about gun laws and gun crimes. When we're talking about this issue, so many times people want to create new laws, create harsher penalties for people they want to make it harder for regular folks to be able to possess a gun. But the majority of gun owners are law-abiding citizens. They're not trying to hurt anybody. They're not trying to harm anybody. They just want to be able to protect themselves. And so, and it just demonstrates the reality that if I have a criminal mind, I'm not going to care. I'm not going to abide by any stupid gun laws. If I have ill will, ill intent in my heart, a gun law ain't going to stop me. Like, honestly, you really think a gun law would have stopped Copeland after, look at his mindset and his prior history. How would that, how in the world would this dude have a mindset to say, okay, well, the law says I'm not supposed to carry a gun, so I'm not going to carry one. We have to think rationally through these concepts, y'all. Instead of trying to always make people feel safer or feel good, we need to think long-term, what is the long-term impact, or what will the long-term impact be of some of these policies and laws and rules that we're trying to enforce? Another example being the bail reform. Now, I think bail, there's a necessity for bail reform because there might be in some cases where there are some people who are in jail and can't get out for silly stuff. But when you start pushing and promoting laws like they're trying to do in Illinois with that quote unquote safety act, so-called safety act, all you're doing is setting people up for failure, and all you're doing ultimately is ignoring the victim and trying to coddle to the suspect, to the criminal, to the offender. It's ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. And just like Cindy said right here, and this is a prime example of why we need guns, because criminals don't care. But let's get back to the actual video here, or the article. With 27 years in law enforcement, this may be one of the worst ones I've ever seen, said Police Chief John Quaka. The victim was literally executed in the back of the head inside his store where he was trying to make a living. It's just absolutely outrageous. The prosecutor said it best. It's monstrous. And it really is. Copeland was denied bond, and since he was charged with capital murder, he will face either life without parole or the death penalty if convicted. India.com claimed in a report that Singh was a resident of Dapai, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, village in Kapurthala district. Speaking to reporters, Parmvir Singh's father, Hadaryal Singh, said that the body of the deceased is being brought to Dapai village. Really sad, y'all. Like really, really completely unnecessary. Which brings us back to the primary issue here and I'm going to take us through the video again, and I jotted down a few notes based on my training and experience. If some of y'all who may be chiming in who may not be familiar with me, I spent 20 years in law enforcement. I'm a former Army veteran, with a pretty extensive martial arts background, starting back from when I was 17 years old. During my time with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, I trained I was a firearms, defensive tactics, and active shooter response instructor. I worked in gang intelligence. I was a gang response officer. Prior to my time on patrol, I was in corrections for a total of 13 years. Roughly just a little over 3 years with the Indiana Department of Corrections, where I worked at Westville Correctional Center, which at that time was a maximum security prison. Later on in 1996, I hired on with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and worked at the Clark County Detention Center from 1996 until 2006. And then ultimately at the end of 2006, I transferred out to the patrol side of the house, where I ultimately retired in 2014. So when it comes down to tactics and things like that, I take it pretty seriously, because I've seen it firsthand how mindset and tactics can play such a significant role in an officer conducting his daily duties, as well as how how it can impact an officer, the average everyday citizen, the decisions that they make, the decisions that you make in an incident like this can totally change the game, completely change the outcome. And again, I'm not here to be ultra critical, but I am going to nitpick a little bit as far as some of the decisions that were made throughout this process. And again, none of us can ever say what can ultimately happen if we ever find ourselves in this situation. But there have been some statistics over the years that demonstrate what works better in most situations. So again, we will dive back into the initial video. I'll back it up a bit, and I'll take us through step by step. And I'll point out some things that I think Mr. Singh did properly, and some areas that I think we might be able to learn from. All right. That's one of the respondents' comment right here. Yeah, if you want to get the full context, if you're just jumping in, if you want to get the full context, yeah, maybe you can rewind it a bit. Especially if you're watching like on YouTube. I'm not sure if Facebook will allow you to rewind. Oh yeah, I see you're watching on YouTube. If you want to get some more context, maybe go back and start the stream and let the stream run, because I just jumped right in. I'm talking a little bit, trying to set the table as to where we are. But if you want the full details, rewind it. I don't show the shooting. I stop it right before that. But again, but at the same time, I'm about to go over the video again. So if you want to just sit back and watch and see what's up, I think you'll get the full benefits as we go. All right, so I'm gonna let the video play here, and I'll talk through as we go. There we go. So here you see the, let's kind of just watch it through, and I'll make some pointers, and I'll point out some details that I thought were pretty important. And before we go there, before we get into that, I want to say this thing right here, right on the outset. Typically, we are told that compliance, let me put my big old head up here. Typically, we are told that compliance is the best response. And I would say that historically speaking, when we look at crime statistics, that is 100% accurate. But don't ever let anyone tell you that, oh, just comply and you'll never have any issues. You'll never have any issues. That's garbage. Because ultimately, in order to make any kind of claim like that, you have to be a mind reader and be able to know 100% what the mindset is of the individual who is attempting to commit the crime, whatever it may be, whether it's a robbery, attempted robbery like this, whether it's a carjacking, home invasion, a sexual assault, whatever it may be, we don't know. You can never speak to the mindset of the individual unless you see that they're being extremely aggressive, extremely angry, extremely threatening. It's kind of a tough read. And you just may have to make your decision based on your gut instinct, the totality of the circumstances, the opportunity. But we'll discuss that here shortly, and particularly the section on opportunity. So let's proceed. So my first takeaway, my first point is that there's no guarantees. Compliance is the best option the majority of the time in most situations, but it's not guaranteed to work. Crappy, yeah, but that's just the reality, unfortunately. So I'll let the audio bring back in.
Rest on this one. Rest of the, because it was taken yesterday. Oh. No, you there.
Okay, let me back up a little bit. I missed one of those spots. Watch Copeland here. Watch Copeland's body language. Now, I'll let the video proceed. He hands him the bag with some of the money in it.
Huh?
There are multiple occasions in this video where Copeland, that's the suspect, turns his head. One of his other concerns is someone coming into the store and catching him in the middle of what he's attempting to do. I would say that there are situations where you may want to confront your suspect physically, but given the fact that right now you have a counter separating you from the suspect, that could limit your ability to be able to attempt to disarm him. So here, what I would suggest is that with the multiple times, it happens more than one, at least twice, and maybe 3 times. But with the multiple times he turns his head away, and I'm an advocate for the Second Amendment, us being able to bear arms so we can safely protect and defend ourselves. I think it would be wise to be in a position to be in possession of your firearm and be skilled. And be skilled, y'all. Make sure you hear me. Be skilled with your weapon. So if you're doing if you have a holster carry or a holster, inside the waist or something along those lines, you're carrying concealed. But the many times he turns his head, that might be an opportunity for you to respond with some shots and get offline. When I say get offline, you take your shots and you move so you're not immediately in the line of fire, potentially, of the suspect. And that could have saved this man's life. Who knows? And again, going back to what I said originally, most of the time, in the majority of situations, compliance works. So he, as you see, as the video progresses, he's going along with this guy for the most part. He's not trying to be difficult. He's not trying to be a jerk. He's not trying to make this guy feel uncomfortable. But old boy knew what he was going to do when he first came in. He knew what his intentions were. He knew just the way he went about it that he was going to take this man's life. So let's proceed here.
Rest on this one. Rest of the because it was taken yesterday. Oh.
Multiple times turn his head. Multiple times the gun is pointing away. I mean, it's a split second for him for Copeland, the suspect, here in the green shirt, green sweater. It's a split second for him to point his gun at Mr. Singh, the store clerk. But he's done this multiple times. So if you decide to take the action to attempt to stop the threat, shoot this guy, I can't say it enough, y'all. Make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you know what you're doing. And that means practice. That means a lot of practice, a lot of reps.
No, you're there. I'm from Mississippi. Oh, no problem.
Look at there. Look at there. Back that up here real quick. I mean, this is just horrible to watch. It really is. Looking, turning his head there. He tells the guy to get on the ground. Mr. Singh. Singh gets on the ground. Look at it. Look at him. Look at there. Now, you would have to have your eyes completely on the suspect to know what's going on. And sometimes making eye contact can make things worse because the guy can take that as a threat, especially in some like the thug culture. You staring at him constantly. He could take that as you trying to be disrespectful. And that could only encourage him to act violently towards you. Just some additional things to think about. That's why another thing that I often recommend to people is let me go back to the full screen here. Another thing that I often try to recommend to people is to practice in your own mind, walk yourself through some scenarios where you have to use force, like the crappiest situation you can think of, where your guard may be down. Rehearse those in your head. Rehearse those in your mind so that when the reality, Lord forbid, the reality ever comes, you're not completely taken off guard. There are many days where I'm getting ready to go to the gym early in the morning, got my bag and I got all my equipment with me. And I'm thinking to myself, when I open this garage door, I don't know what's outside. It could be some dudes waiting to kick down the door, waiting to point their gun at me. Am I in a position where I can respond? Do I have easy access to my firearm? What would I do if I'm getting in the car and something goes down? If I'm in my car and somebody tries to bum rush me, tries to break into my home, what will I do? And then I just walk myself through multiple scenarios. Now, if I find I'm walking to my car and I have my backpack over my shoulder, maybe I'll move it down and I'll have it in a position where I can have quicker access to my gun. These are just some of the things that I go through, that I go over pretty much daily. Even now, 8 years retired, I still rehearse these things. I still practice these things because I understand that when evil comes knocking at your door, they don't send an invitation. They don't ask you to RSVP. They don't give you they don't make a public announcement. It happens, and you can't predict when it's coming. So drill these things in your mind. Be on your guard, and it can put you miles ahead of the suspect even, and can help you respond better. I hope that helps. Turn his head repeatedly.
Okay, slow. Okay. How you doing, stomach? Yeah, get it, man. You take it all, no problem. Stomach. Okay.
Now he's telling him to get on his stomach. And Mr. Singh, although mostly cooperative, I would say the majority of the time he was cooperative. He's still demonstrating some resistance, and I'm not placing any blame on him whatsoever. Let me make that abundantly clear. But that little bit of resistance can cause a already aggressive and evil-minded individual, can push them over the edge potentially. So I would suggest that if you're going to be compliant, be completely compliant. And if you're going to, maybe he was attempting to lull him into a false sense of security and he wanted to be in a better tactical position. Who knows? Maybe that was his thought. And I can't blame him for that. So, but let's watch as the video progresses.
Take this one. No, do that.
So now he saw some more money. And this is another thing. Let me back that up just a little bit. Back it up just a little bit. As he sees him stepping over the counter, he knows that he has money here that he hasn't given him. He knows he has money underneath the register that he hasn't given him.
You take this one. No,
so now he's reaching right there. Now he's reaching right there to an unknown location with a suspect who has a gun on him. Not a smart move. Not a smart move. Now I understand he may not have wanted to piss the guy off, letting him know that he had money and that he was hiding from him. But man, oh man, I always say, you can always get money back. You can always get your money back, but you can never get your life back. So going back to the compliance issue, comply all the way. Comply all the way or don't comply. Yeah, if you're trying to set the guy up, lull him into a false sense of security, do what you have to do. But I don't think it's smart to straddle the fence on these issues here, necessarily. Could be. There's some things to think about. The unfortunate reality is you're in a crappy situation, period. Crappy situation, period. Let me respond. Let me post this comment here and respond to it from GK. Asking someone to lay on their stomach is a red flag. Well, you're being held at gunpoint with somebody attempting to rob you. That could be a red flag. That's a red flag from the beginning. I think the clerk resisted because you are putting yourself in a completely vulnerable position, not being able to see the criminal. True to some degree. I agree with that. But I've seen video footage, and I've been on crime scenes where a person was robbed at gunpoint, and they were told to get on the ground, and they survived. The suspect was just trying to make sure that they couldn't get the drop on them. Again, there's no magic bullet, no magic pill for this. We don't have we can't jump on a crystal ball and see what's going to happen in the future. I get him not wanting to comply. I understand that completely, and get on the ground and be placed in a completely vulnerable position. And I'm not knocking him for it. All I'm saying is just that depending on the mindset of the individual, of the suspect, of the criminal, of Copeland in this situation, he could have been looking at that as this dude's just not being compliant, and I need to, quote unquote, take this dude out. Who knows? I'm speculating here. There's a lot of speculation. That's primarily all we can do, honestly. But back to the main point here, but I appreciate you jumping in with that one, GK. But back to the point of him reaching to an unknown spot. That's just not smart, y'all. Copeland doesn't know what he's reaching for. Dude could have been had a gun there and been reaching for it. He had the best intentions in his mind, but dealing with someone who's volatile and crazy enough to rob you, if I'm not mistaken, in the daytime. I can't recall what time it took place. But who's crazy enough to rob you in the first place isn't someone that you're going to trust to be careful with the firearm. Not me personally. He did give it to him. Yes, he did. Back on the floor. I'm going to stop it right there, y'all. I'll stop it right there because in 3 more seconds, he's going to shoot this gentleman in the back of his head and end his life. And I don't think we need to see that. I got a couple extra comments here. I think they'll be very helpful. I got a couple of brothers here. They're former police officers as well. And I think that they have a YouTube channel. Shout out to Corey Taylor. And I can't remember your partner's name, brother. I'm sorry. But they have a YouTube channel called Brothers in Law. Brothers in Law. If you guys want they put out some good, deep level content, y'all. They go in deep to a lot of the more current police use of force, controversial shootings. If you want to get some good information when it comes down to if you want to better understand the police use of force, go and subscribe to them. You'll thank me for it later. Come back and thank me for it later. But my man posted right up here. Definitely not worth my life trying to reach for that money. It just isn't. It just isn't. I can't stress that enough. You reach over and you attempt to grab that money. This dude is already crazy, already ignorant, stupid, has an evil in his heart, and then you're just going to reach blindly and grab some cash just to give it to him? Now, I know he wanted to give it to him because he didn't want to look like, oh, I'm lying. I was trying to hide this money. Man, I would have given this dude what he wanted. And even that's what he initially did. I think he requested the blue bag, the blue pouch with the money, but he might have said that that's it. There's nothing else. And that I don't think that could have helped the situation overall. 1 second, y'all. Let me plug in my computer here before it dies on me. Give me a second. There we go. Appreciate that, brother. I'm sure they'll appreciate it too. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Cindy. I really want people to, I just want to give people things to think about. I just want to give folks things to think about when, if you're ever here, having rehearsed these things, I can't stress enough how important that is, But absolutely, y'all. He's lucky he didn't get shot. He's extremely lucky he didn't get shot with that last move. And he was quote unquote trying to be helpful. He was trying to be helpful by giving this guy the money and showing him and trying to demonstrate, I'm compliant. Because once he stepped over the counter, all the dude had to do is glance over. There's no hiding that you still have cash available. There's no hiding that. But let me get back to a few of the points that I wrote down. I talked about compliance. One, compliance isn't always guaranteed, unfortunately. But compliance is the best step to take in most situations. In most situations like this, compliance is the best first step. Number 3 I wrote down was try to remain calm. And again, if you've rehearsed these situations over in your head, the chances that you'll be able to not totally freak out are increased. Now, there's a difference between rehearsing someone having a gun in your face and actually having a gun placed in your face. And I get that. But on the opposite side, at least you're not going in totally naive. And I think too many people now, historically and in our society today, just don't think it's going to happen to them. Excuse me. They always think it's going to happen down the street or not in my neighborhood or not in my city. I often refer back to this situation. When I was living, me and my family, when we were living in Fayetteville, Arkansas for a few years, very low crime rate. At least it was back when we were living there. I'm not sure what's happened since we left. Since we left in 2016. But you have a city with a very low crime rate. And some of my friends, God bless them, I love them to death. But when it came down to safety and security, they just made some very bad decisions routinely. Didn't lock their car doors, didn't lock the door to their home. And they would constantly say to me, Eric, you're not in Las Vegas anymore. And I'm like, yeah, I know that, but acting like crime doesn't exist is being kind of naive. And it just is. And so I think that there's something to be said of just about taking those initial steps to protect yourself. Carry your weapon, practice, build some proficiency. Think about what can happen, the worst case scenario. Somebody catches you slipping. You're going to take the trash out. You're going to check the mailbox. And then someone stops you and pulls a gun on you, tries to rob you. What are you going to do? Yeah, it's uncomfortable. And I know a lot of people want to avoid some of these topics because they are uncomfortable. But that's why we should rehearse them. Okay, I don't have my gun on me. He caught me slipping. I went to take the trash out. All I got on are my flip-flops and some shorts, and I don't have anything on me. I'm complying. Put your hands up. Now, is there an opportunity for you to attempt to disarm him? And before we go, I'm glad I brought that up. Let me share with you one more video before we go on that topic of disarming. If you are going to go down that path, if you choose to go down that path, please make sure that you know what it is that you are doing. Make sure that you know what you are doing. Now, this is an old video that I saw many moons ago. I think I saw it prior to going to the police academy, but definitely after. Definitely while I was in the police academy. And they shared it, and they didn't show the whole video. I think actually I saw it prior to going to the police academy. I saw the full video. But when I was in the police academy, they showed it, and they edited it down in order to make it look like the cop won. But let me tell you, he didn't. Make this a little bigger. Like in the end, I'll just let you know ahead of time. In the end, he survived. The officer survived. But here you have a situation where this officer is attempting to make a vehicle stop. And this is what happens.
Okay, dude. Okay. What you want? I don't want anything.
Drop your gun.
Okay. Let me put this down. I'll put everything down for you. I'll put everything down, okay?
It was supposed to be a routine stop for speeding. Instead,
Okay, let me point this out here. Now, I'm not sure if it's the vest or this officer is just a little bit on the heavy side. I can't say with 100% certainty, but I would guess he doesn't look like the picture of fitness. Just to be nice, he doesn't look like the picture of health and fitness. Okay? And your health and fitness can impact your reaction time. And I know it ain't popular these days to talk about someone being out of shape, being fat, but let's talk about reality. And that's what we try to hang our hat on here in my house and definitely on my channel. Let's talk about reality. Being out of shape, if this is the situation that this officer is in, then that does not help you, whether you're an officer or whether you are a civilian, and you are in a situation where you have to defend yourself. Let this be another motivation for you to get off your butt, if I can be nice, if I can be blunt, and get your butt to the gym and take care of yourself, because Lord only knows what is out there waiting on you. And if you can ever be, and I think the worst situation, the worst place to be is to be helpless when you know that there are things that you could have done where you could have eliminated that helpless feeling. But let's let the video proceed.
the suspect, 20-year-old Thomas Stokel of North Carolina, pulls a gun on New Mexico trooper Michael Applegate.
He pulls a gun on him, telling him to drop his gun. He's being stopped at point blank range. Let's let it continue.
Gun away, all right? Be cool about this. I don't even know who you are, man. Why'd you pull over? Because you were speeding.
Seconds later, this video taken from the trooper's cruiser shows Stokel trying to take Applegate's gun.
And I'll say this, though. The officer here is very calm. He's cool. He's as calm and cool as you can possibly be. He's trying to talk the situation down. Excellent job of trying to de-escalate an extremely dangerous and volatile situation. Excellent job.
As another trooper comes to the rescue.
Look right here. He's about to... Let me back that up. Let me back that up.
Rescue.
Now, if you're going to make this move, y'all, I don't blame him for trying to disarm him. I don't blame him for trying to disarm him. He was making contact with his arm, but it ain't like the reality ain't like the movies where you're going to get a quick spin and then you're going to take the gun away from the guy, especially when you're dealing with what looks like an older cop who doesn't look physically fit with a young, slimmer suspect who's crazy enough to pull his gun on the officer. Little chuckle break. Oh, snap, is that a Ford Tempo? I think so. So you know we're going way back. But yeah. If you're going back to what I said initially, let me let the video proceed. I'll let the video proceed and then I'll wrap up that point. We're not done yet. So another officer shows up.
Stokel puts the gun to Applegate's head. Listen.
Don't do it, man, please. Listen, I got a family. Listen, man. Where? Walk towards him? Yeah, walk towards him. Stop right now. Drop your gun, mother. Hey, listen, wait a minute. Let me talk to you.
With the second trooper out of the way, Stokel decides to have a companion drive, and Applegate is told to get in the back seat.
Let me just tell you something, okay?
Now, this guy right here, as unstable as he is, you don't know what can happen. You just don't know. You can just hope to comply and then hope you have an opportunity to de-escalate the situation or disarm him and take him out or kill him if necessary.
Get over. You getting in with me? Yeah.
Even as the car drives off, Applegate attempts to reason with his gun-toting captor.
Take your finger off the trigger, man. You could go off accidentally.
All right. Now, just so you know, from what I've heard, the officer survived. And down the road, they were able to take the Stokely, I believe was the suspect's name. They were able to take him into custody. I don't want you to leave y'all hanging wondering what happened after that incident. But going back to the situation that we're addressing primarily in this in today's video, it's and addressing the if I'm not mistaken, I think I kind of lost my train of thought. But when we're addressing the option of responding, you can't rest on your laurels or your let's say 15 years ago you trained in karate and you got to you got to your second or third belt. But that was a long time ago. A lot of donuts, a lot of beer, a lot of sitting around, a lot of pounds added on. And yeah, you ain't what you used to be. And unfortunately, a lot of us tend to want to rest on our laurels and assume that we were able to do it one time back in the day. We can still do that. Now, that may not be true. That may not necessarily be true. And trust me, I've been running lately, and the things I used to do back in the day when I was in the Army or when I was in high school, it's a far cry from where I'm at now. Even though I'm getting there, I'm getting a little better, but reality sets in. I'm 52 years old now. Now, there's some things that I'm better at today than I was when I was a teenager. I think I'm overall a better athlete. I think I'm stronger, definitely stronger. I think I'm definitely a better fighter. I have more of a tactical mindset based on all the training I've been through over the years, my time in the Army, my time training with the Vegas LVMPD SWAT team, my time as an active shooter, defensive tactics, firearms instructor, all the years of martial arts training, the different arts I've studied over the years. I think I'm a way better, there's no doubt that I'm a way more skilled fighter as a whole. But even I understand that there's such a ring rust, that there's such a thing as rust. And there's such a thing as losing your proficiency. And we have to be realistic. We have to be realistic and understand what we're capable of and what we aren't capable of. And the only way to avoid that is by practicing all of our tactical skills, is by keeping our bodies and our minds in tip-top shape. So what you eat matters. Even when you retire, just sitting around eating Doritos and watching TV and drinking beer all day and getting minimal activity is the worst place for you, especially if you're still working in law enforcement, for instance. Or whatever career field you're in, just as a stay-at-home, homeschooling mom, you still have to go to the store. You still have to go and attend church, get gas, do all these different things where you may run into evil. Period. That's just the reality of our world. And it's been like that since the dawn of man, since the history of the world. Going back to Adam and Eve, going back all the way to the beginning, people are sinful, and there are people out there who do not care about you. And they look at you as potential prey. So with that knowledge, with that reality, what do you do? What do you do to help protect yourself? So to sum it all up, just as a bit of a refresher, compliance isn't always guaranteed, but it is typically the smartest thing to do. I would say also that there comes a time where you have to trust your instincts. You have to trust your intuition. Do I have the book over here? Let me see. Do I have it here? I have a book that I highly recommend. It's not a perfect book, but I have a series of books. I'm always reading books on tactics and tactical mindset and things like that. Old school book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. I highly recommend that book because it talks about the power of intuition. And in most situations where someone has been criminally victimized, there was a time at some point in the incident where they knew that something wasn't right, and they kind of knew the direction that it was going to go down. And I think the tough part in today's society is in a culture where social justice and being woke reigns supreme. The idea that somebody may not make you feel safe or may make you feel uncomfortable, I think a lot of people are fighting against that because they don't want to be considered as being a hater, racist, or whatever other term they want to put behind it. But I think that there is a reality to, man, this situation does not look right. This situation does not feel right. So everything in me is screaming to me to get off the elevator, get out of this stairwell alone. Everything is screaming to me to go back inside the mall and see if I can get someone to walk with me to my car. But a lot of times we're like, well, maybe I'm just being paranoid. I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway. And then, unfortunately, they open the door for a tragedy. But I highly recommend The Gift of Fear when it comes down to mindset. It comes down to intuition. Sometimes your best bet would be to trust your instincts. And I tell that to everybody, whoever asks me about different situations. I think many of us have lived long enough to where we can determine, when a situation is bad or good, or or it just makes us feel unsafe. But let's move on from there. Again, try to do the best you can to remain calm. Try to remain calm as this incident occurs. And one way you can remain calm is by practicing the situations, rehearsing the potential situation in your head. Rehearse it. Go over it so that you're not completely taken by surprise. Another thing is how you breathe. When we were as a police officer, I attended, like I said earlier, I attended a lot of different types of training. And one course I went through was Bulletproof Mind, the Bulletproof Mind with Colonel Dave Grossman. And he talks about a form of breathing where it's like you inhale to a count of 4, hold for 4, exhale to a count of 4. And that can help people remain calm during a stressful environment. And him being a former Army, I think it was the Lieutenant Colonel, former Army Ranger, and then him discussing violent encounters. He wrote multiple books on killing, on combat, and these books are so powerful because they help you understand how your body responds in a violent encounter or in a potentially dangerous encounter. The things that takes place with your body, whether it's from how your brain responds, they call it when your eyes focus and zoom in on the potential threat, or when you only hear certain things, or you can down the road later on you remember very minute details. They call it auditory exclusion. They've had officers who were held at gunpoint said that they were able to see the bullet in the barrel of the gun. Crazy things like that. But it's just how your body prepares itself for stress, prepares itself for combat. So another book I recommend, highly recommend. He has it on audio, the Bulletproof Mind, on combat, on killing. Again, going back to Gavin DeBecker's book, what did I just say it was? Drawing a blank. Just rewind what I said, y'all. I'm sure it'll pop into my head here shortly. But go back and check out Gavin, The Gift of Fear. The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. Go back and check out his book. It's on audio as well. I think you can thank me for that later. And be proficient with your tactics. If you feel as if compliance just ain't gonna work and you need to stop this threat as quickly as possible, that may involve a physical response. You attempting to physically disarm him or her, or it may involve you using your firearm or another weapon in order to quell or stop the threat. So keep those things in your mind, y'all. And I think that overall, it will improve. Now, nothing, again, as I said earlier, there's nothing that can make you completely bulletproof from potential harm. We're human beings, we're limited. And again, you can never know the complete mindset. I don't think that Mr. Singh thought that Copeland was gonna. He's probably been robbed before. He's in Tupelo, Mississippi. I'm not sure what the crime rate is there, but I think I would venture to guess that it's not the best in the nation. I think that'd be a safe guess. And the guy seemed relatively calm. He seemed relatively calm. He wasn't irate like this kid in this other video who actually kidnapped a cop. He was irate. He was all over the place, screaming and yelling. But this guy right here, Copeland, is pretty calm. I'm sure this isn't the first person he's killed. He was too calm with it. He was by himself. He didn't even need another group to hype him up. He was on his own and shot the dude in the head. Like that was going to make things better. But so just keep your tactics sharp. And if you aren't skilled, it's always a place to start. You can always start today. You can always start today by walking, by within your limits, whatever your limits are. And again, before you embark on the exercise program, make sure you check with your doctor to see what you're physically able to do. Make sure that you're medically cleared to do these things. But there are a lot of things that you can do today to start on that process. Start on that process of you developing a warrior mindset, which I think we should all have in this day and age that we're living in. So I hope this video has been helpful to y'all. And if you found that you got a lot out of it, please share it with your friends and family. And let me go over some of a few of the comments in the comment section here, because I'm sure I missed something. But again, I appreciate y'all joining me today. I got you here. I think I saw this one. Thank you for your time and sharing this advice. Yes, you're welcome again, Cindy. I think you got it as I went along, brother. There was Tupelo, Mississippi. Yeah, slow. Yeah, somebody already commented. Thank you for jumping on that. GK responded. I'm giving him a chance to, but he didn't shoot the guy who was reaching, when he was reaching, when he might have thought the clerk was a threat, potentially reaching for a weapon. He shot him after he laid down. So evil. Yeah, I'm not. I said that because just reaching to a blind spot is just not smart. That's the reason I brought that up. It's just not a wise thing to do. Reach into a blind area under your counter when you're being held at gunpoint. Because that's another thing, just to flip the script a little bit or to bring it into a slightly different scenario. When you see in law enforcement, dudes end up getting shot. And a lot of times it's because, not in every situation, but a lot of times dude reached into his pockets or he reached under his seat while he was in his car. And then the officer responded by shooting him. Now, why would an officer do that? Because in most cases, or in many cases, they were giving them commands not to move. And then you reach to an unknown area. And again, just like I said here, you're going to a blind spot where God only knows what you have underneath your seat or under the counter. And you're dealing with someone, going back to the Copeland and Singh murder, you're just opening the door for a guy to respond violently towards you. Your best bet would be to be cool, remain compliant. And if you feel as if there's an opportunity or that there's a need for you to attempt to stop him, wait for an opportune time. But I agree with that. Yes, absolutely evil. I try to keep y'all as knowledgeable as I can. We as citizens need to learn to keep our heads on a swivel. We're living in crazy times. Absolutely, y'all. Let me tell y'all something. And I'm sure you can help me out with that, brothers-in-law. I'm sure you agree. You can agree. Going through some of the content that we address, first of all, having a extended history in law enforcement, I think it'll mess with your head just thinking back on some of the things that you experienced that the average everyday citizen is never privy to, and thankfully so, and justifiably so. Most people shouldn't have to deal with some of the things that we've seen over the years. But and now as I'm retired and I'm going through some videos looking for content to create, man, you just see evil out there. And I just try to tell my family, when I'm making these videos, my mindset is when they want to go out and do something and they're not carrying their weapons on them, I'm just like, are you carrying? When my daughter wants to go for a run, do you have some pepper? I'm slobbering over here, y'all, forgive me. When my daughter's about to go on a run, I'm like, are you carrying pepper spray? Are you carrying your gun? If something goes on, do you have some tactics? Do you know what you need to do if something happens? If somebody pulls up, like that unfortunate incident in Memphis with the young lady jogger, if someone pulls up on you, what are you going to do? Like, do you have a response? And we've rehearsed these things over the years, but sometimes when you're talking to young people or just the average everyday citizen who's never faced violence before, they don't think it's going to happen to them. Like I tell my daughter, when you're running and when you're out there running, in the area we're living in, we have coyotes. So I tell her, when you're out there running, you may not have time to reach in your bag to get something. Now, you can't run with your gun in your hand. You look like a fool out there, and next thing the cops will be bum rushing you, at best. So I tell her, at the very least, if you run, have your pepper spray in your hand. And be familiar, make sure you sprayed a little bit out of it, and you're familiar with how to manipulate it. So it's not the first time you ever try to use it. So I said, run with pepper spray in your hand. So if somebody tries to hurt you, you have a response, ready, in hand, ready for you to use. Again, like I said, we have coyotes in our area, so sometimes I have a little short metal stick. I mean, it's a solid metal stick that I'll take out with me as I go on my runs. And I'm carrying. I have a fanny pack cinched down tight, and I got all my tools in there. I'm ready for action. I'm ready to respond in case anything goes down. And then I practice every day, practice my draw every day. I'm over there zipping out my fanny pack, open my fanny pack, reaching and pulling my gun out of its holster in my bag. Little steps like that, little tips, little things like that can go a long way. I didn't realize the police had a dash cam and audio recordings back then. And it looks like Highway Patrol. I think Highway Patrol were the ones, they were kind of outliers. They were ahead of the game. Because a lot of times those officers are out there by themselves and backup is miles away. Yeah, miles away. Appreciate you, brother. We're going to have to hook up again, man, do another show. Hard to think he was robbed multiple times and go reach for something, though. Seems more like a naive person not having been robbed before. A good point. You could very well be right. I think he thought he was just accommodate the suspect. At the same time, this is what makes me think that he might have been robbed before, is the fact that he just tried to keep something on the side. If I'm getting robbed at the first time, and he seemed really calm, or he seemed relatively calm in light of the situation, the fact that a gun was on him before. And those two factors, the fact that he wasn't completely compliant, the fact that he kept a little money on the side and didn't give the guy everything he asked for, and as calm as he was during the situation, gave me the impression that he might have been in this situation before. I'll see if I can do some research, and if I find out anything, I'll post a link on Facebook and on YouTube talking about it. A good point. No, you're out. We need to start thinking the what if. Absolutely. Absolutely. You talked about intuition. I think the clerk's intuition told him, even though he was being accommodating, he felt something might happen when he asked for to lay face down. That's why he resisted. It could be, man. We'll never know, unfortunately. We'll never know. So sad. But I want to thank y'all for swinging by here. If you haven't subscribed or followed my channel, this is the first time you're seeing me. If you appreciate content that addresses these issues, whether it's dealing with the criminal justice system, crime overall, policing, how to better defend yourself, please give my channel, check out my channel, check out Cobra Conversations. I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, and YouTube is where I primarily create my content. I have some videos coming out today. I have another short coming out today. As a matter of fact, here coming up, what time is it? Coming up in about another hour. So I'd appreciate it if you come on over there and watch some of my other content as I try to grow my audience. I want more people to better understand the reality of the world that we're living in. I want more people to understand what cops do, not to ever just give them an absolute pass. But I think a lot of the gap in between the average everyday citizen and law enforcement is just a lack of knowledge. So that's what Code Red Conversations and brothers-in-law, as I mentioned them. Hey, do me a favor, brother. If you're still here, put a link to your YouTube channel in the comments so people can just jump on there and check you out, man. I want you guys to get some additional exposure too. So if you can do that as well, that would be awesome. And but yeah, y'all, this situation should have never happened. This Mr. Singh should have never been in this situation from the get-go. But it's the tragic and unfortunate reality when we see crime rates skyrocketing all over the country, primarily in a lot of extremely liberal cities. Let's just call it for what it is. When we see this being the case, to act as if we can never be in that situation is just being naive, and it's not being intelligent, it's not being smart. And it may cost you a few bucks, it may cost you some pain and some suffering when you're trying to get yourself healthy and fit and learning some new skills. It may take away from some of your more quote unquote enjoyable time, but the payoff, you can't beat it. The payoff, you can't beat it. Walking around with the confidence and knowing that you're physically fit and that you're tactically proficient, it's a good feeling. It's a really, really good feeling. And if I hadn't said it enough, I'll say it again. And in this world that we're living in, it's what we need. We need the Lord first and foremost, but after that, be proficient and skilled enough to defend ourselves and to defend those that we love and defend those who can't defend themselves. But once again, I appreciate y'all for joining me. And as always, in the meantime, stay safe, God bless, and make sure you join the conversation. I'm out.